Hey YouTube, Carrot Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Earthbound Servant Yu-Gi-Oh deck profile. Wanted to do an update to the Earthbound Servant deck. It's been a few sets since the last update to when we got the initial support for this deck from Maze of Millennia. We've gotten the new fusion spell, the new fusion monster, since Age of Overlord, as well as Phantom Nightmare, and I've just never updated the deck with the new cards. I always like to stick to as pure of a synchro fusion style deck that this deck is meant to be, and maybe we'll see some more Earthbound Servant or Earthbound monsters for us to use with the setup of our main go-to spell, Harmonic Synchro Fusion, in the future, because the more generic support we get for the deck, the more fun I can think it can be also. We have plenty of cards still that Sergei used in the anime to be able to fully utilize with this deck. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the actual Earthbound Prisoner monsters. We're running 3 copies of Earthbound Prisoner Stone Sweeper. If there is a card in the field zone, you can special summon this card from your hand. And then also with this card, you're going to special summon Earthbound Prisoner Stone Sweeper once per turn this way. You can discard this card to add one level 3 or lower Fiend monster from your deck to your hand. So with this card, you have the added option of adding the needed Fiend Tuner from your deck to your hand. You cannot special summon from the X deck for the rest of this turn, except for Fusion or Synchro Monsters. You're going to use this effect of Stone Sweeper once per turn. The main play with this card is not so much the special summon resource for this monster on the field, but more the setup of being able to use this card for being able to search out our other tuners that we run in the deck for the added playstyle of being able to then use those monsters for the summon back of those cards and resources from our deck to our hand. Some of those monsters being our Earthbound Prisoner Linewalker, which we're also running the 3 copies of. If it's normal or special summon, you can add 1 Earthbound Prison or 1 Harmonic Synchro Fusion from your deck to your hand. So with this card, it gives you more of the search for either the field spell to then use with your Stone Sweeper, or the Harmonic Synchro Fusion, which is the go-to Synchro Fusion spell in the deck for you to use as well for the initial activation and restriction for your opponent's cards. And you can banish this card from your graveyard, target 1 effect monster your opponent controls that was special summoned from the extra deck, shuffle that face up effect monster into the deck. Then your opponent can special summon 1 monster with the same name from their extra deck. You want to use this effect of Prison Linewalker once per turn, but it's more or less just to get rid of that initial resource and the also search and setup that we also have in the deck as well. Now for those I don't have the Earthbound Prison in the deck, I have a placeholder in the form of Earthbound Geoglyph. So for the field spell spot in the deck, if you want to run Earthbound Prison instead, that's what you replace for this card search. And also the 3 copies of Earthbound Prisoner Groundkeeper. If it's normal or special summon, you can special summon 1 level 5 or lower Earthbound monster from your deck or graveyard, except for Earthbound Prisoner Groundkeeper. Also, you got special summon for the X deck, except for Fusion or Synchro Monsters. And you can use this effect once per turn. And Earthbound monster you control cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects while there is a card in the field zone. So the field zone is still pretty important for that initial play, but the main play also is just to be able to use this card to discard, adding the Fiend monster of choice. Then you can summon your Stone Keeper or Stone Sweeper back from the graveyard to the field using your Groundkeeper. I also run the 3 copies of Satellite Synchron. Just when you summon back from the graveyard, if a monster is special summoned from your graveyard, except during the damage step, so if you use your Groundkeeper to summon it, you can special summon this card from your hand. If you have a Synchro monster with Warrior, Synchron, or Stardust, you can make this card level 4, but the big play is to make your level 6 Synchro with your initial Groundkeeper to Stone Sweeper play, and then make your Geo Gremlin have the Satellite Synchron on the field to then be able to summon out your Servant Geo Griffin. More of the generic monsters that we use for the lineup for Synchro Summoning, 3 copies of Junk Forward. If you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand, so just a way to grab more resources on the field for our summons. If your opponent has a negation option and they stop your Linewalker, the initial special summon from your Junk Forward on the field can at least get you the same level 6 Synchro play, if you wish. And 3 copies of Cyber Dragon. I would say the same implementation as the Junk Forward. If your opponent controls a monster and you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand, giving you a level 5 monster to then use with our varying tuner monsters, just like we would have with the Stone Sweeper that would be in our graveyard. And for the hand traps, I have 3 copies of Moonlit Chill and 2 copies of Effect Failure. If you wanted to run Ash Blossom, you can always just drop one or the other of these hand traps for the Ash Blossom spot in the deck. Also, it's more just player preference, depending on which one you wanted to run. For the spells, we have the 1 copy of Harmonic Synchro Fusion. You send 1 tuner and 1 non-tuner from your face-up on the field to the graveyard to special summon both the following monsters from your X deck. 1 Synchro Monster that could be Synchro Summon using just those 2 monsters as from the graveyard as material. 1 Fusion Monster that could be used in just those 2 monsters in the graveyard as material. And you cannot special summon from the X deck the turn you activate this card, except for Fusion and Synchro Monsters. You can activate 1 Harmonic Synchro Fusion per turn, but the added search power as well means that you can also add it from the graveyard, so you can use your Line Walker just to add back this spell card from your graveyard to you then reuse again. That's why we only have the 1 of copy, because it's just an easy search to go for. Also, the 2 copies of Earthbound Fusion. You can only activate this card during the main phase unless a card's in the field zone. Fusion summon 1 Dark Fusion Monster from your X deck using monsters from your hand or field as material. During your main phase, if this card's in the field zone, you can banish this card from your graveyard to special summon 1 Earthbound Monster from your hand or graveyard. Also, you cannot special summon from the X deck for the rest of this turn except for Fusion or Synchro Monsters, but it gives you those resources on the field and is just another answer to be able to fusion summon in this deck aside from Harmonic Synchro Fusion, because it's a lot easier to go for a Synchro summon because you just need the tuner on the field. The fusion aspect is a little more difficult because we were just relying on Harmonic Synchro Fusion beforehand. Now we at least have an additional card to go for the fusion play. I have the 1 copy of Earthbound Geoglyph. Once again, this is meant to be the spot for the Earthbound Prison field spell that you can search off of Line Walker. So if you have the Earthbound Prison, you replace it for the Geoglyph spot, because then you would also have the searchable spell to then make use of with all your other cards. I have the 1 copy of Instant Fusion and the 1 copy of Ready Fusion for additional fusion targets in the X deck to give us more monsters to use for being able to go for our synchro plays. And other 1-ofs for the spells include 1 copy of Monster Reborn, 1 Reasoning, 1 1-for-1, and the 1 Triple Tactics Talents, all just coming in handy depending on the special summon we want to go for, or just reacting to any of the cards our opponent may try to use to disrupt our own plays. For the traps, I run 1 copy of Earthbound Resonance. If a monster that was special summoned from the extra deck is destroyed by a card effect, except during the damage step, you can target 1 of them. Each player takes damage equal to half its attack, and when your Dark Synchro Monster is special summoned from the extra deck is targeted for an attack, you can target 1 card on the field and destroy it. So with our Dark Synchro Monsters being a good majority of what we run, we have plenty of options to use our Earthbound Resonance to protect this card on the field, as well as inflict a little bit of burn damage in the form of Moon Dragon Keela and Sun Dragon Inti, what they were meant to initially do with the Earthbound Immortals. The 3 copies of Back to the Front, just more special summon resources from the graveyard, because once again, the Earthbound Servants gain different effects when they are special summoned, so if you can summon them onto the field, you'll have different resources to grab using those monsters as well. And lastly, the 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, just along with the other hand traps, a small engine to run that really doesn't cut into the engine you want to use either. For the extra deck, for the Synchro Monsters, we have the 1 copy of Earthbound Servant Yugioh Griffin and the 2 copies of Yugioh Gremlin. Yugioh Gremlin, during the main phase, to being able to target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. Your opponent chooses 1 of these effects for you to apply, destroy that monster, or gain life points equal to that monster. And during the battle phase, you can fusion summon 1 Earthbound Fusion Monster from your extra deck by banished materials from your hand, field, and or graveyard. So Yugioh Gremlin can act as an additional fusion play, if need be, with Yugioh Griffin being our bigger boss monster as well, being able to destroy and inflict damage to your opponent for each Earthbound monster with a different name from your field or graveyard. More generic synchros include the FA Dawn Dragster, the Psyframe Lord Omega, the Draco Berserker of the Tenyi, Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, the Leo Keeper of the Sacred Tree, and lastly the Psychic and Punisher. Just a varying amount of levels to be able to go into for some more generic synchro plays, with our fusion monsters being the 1 copy of Geograsha, the 1 copy of Geograffin, the Kraken, not Graffin, the 1 Geo Gremlina, all different varying fusion monsters for the Earthbound monsters to be able to summon out, with our Geo Gremlin being the newest one to the addition since the last update to the deck. And then lastly, the instant fusion and ready fusion targets, the 1 Alvain, the 1 Dragoness, and the 1 Carbonalo Warrior. And then as for some of the go-to plays in the deck, we'll go over the Stone Sweeper setup that I mentioned before. Having this card as the discard means we can grab the additional play for our summon. So we can use either our Earthbound Line Walker or our Earthbound Groundkeeper, depending on what we want to go for in the deck. So the monsters we have to send for the initial Harmonic Synchro Fusion play also come into mind with this summon. So you can use the Line Walker as the additional grab. So if you send this card out of it and grab the Line Walker, you can then use it to grab Harmonic Synchro Fusion. Now, what's important also with this summon is you want to go for the Line Walker if, let's say, you already have your special summon of your Junk Forward or your Cyber Dragon on the field, because then you'll summon out this monster, use the Stone Sweeper for the discard, then go for the normal summon of Line Walker, adding the Harmonic Synchro Fusion, activating this card, giving you the send of your tuner and non-tuner to special summon the Synchro Monster and the Fusion Monster that can both be used off of those cards. So then you can go for the play of your monsters being the tuner setup for your Geo Gremlin onto the field, along with the initial setup. Remember your restrictions for your other Earthbound monsters, because your Geo Gremlina needs a Dark monster, and your additional Geo Kraken needs 2 Earthbound monsters. So you'll have your Synchro Fusion play. Either you can go for the Harmonic Synchro Fusion play this way, or you can have the initial setup for more and more of those resources, depending on what you want to go for on the field. That's why we also have to rely on the Stone Sweeper play to send and grab our Groundkeeper to summon this card out, giving us our Stone Sweeper back on the field. Then we need the initial summon for our Line Walker. So let's say the Line Walker was still the summon on the field. If you use cards like your 1-for-1 to grab the special summon of your Groundkeeper, you can have the same initial play, setting up your monster on the field, and then use the Harmonic Synchro Fusion to grab your 2 monsters for the play, giving you your Synchro Monster and additionally your Fusion Monster on the field to use as well. Having your additional fusion play to then use with Geo Gremlina to then go into your bigger Geo Grasha summon. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. Like I said, just wanted to update this deck. It's been a couple cents since we've gotten the last support for it, and I feel an update was definitely due. But as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.